Hi guys, Finch here and welcome down to Tech Tuesday, your weekly look at everything technical within the golf industry. And I think that probably makes every single one of the intros to these Tech Tuesdays have a different introduction every single time. Hey, variety is the spice of life. And because 2016 is over pretty much, we're going to have a quick look back on some of the big stories from the year and then look forward into 2017 to what we may see, to what we should expect, and to what I think the golf industry really does need to change if it wants to keep people on side. So two of the biggest stories from the year was undoubtedly Nike having to ditch its hardware section and just focus on apparel, simply because they weren't able to get a good market share and they weren't making any money out of hardware. And it really did start to raise questions as to if a massive company like Nike cannot make money out of hardware, what are some of the other big equipment manufacturers doing to actually survive within this industry? And we certainly saw that there were issues in other areas. TaylorMade, of course, being put up for sale. Now, the reason that TaylorMade were put up for sale is they weren't making as much money as they used to, simply enough. But this year, with the M1 and the M2 being brought out, they seem to be gaining traction again. What the new M1 and the new M2 releases actually do, it's too early to tell, but the M1 and the M2, which were brought out earlier this year, they certainly dominated the driver market and they gained so much popularity, not only on tour, of course a lot of that was paid for, but I'll double back onto this, but also amongst mainstream consumers. You know, a lot of people who have been turned off TaylorMade in the past because they used to bring out so many clubs actually started to go back to that manufacturer. I know I certainly did. I didn't use TaylorMade drivers before that point, apart from the R15, which I tried very, very briefly. And it certainly won a lot of people round. And if we go back to that Tour Pro question, if you think about it, especially the Nike players, when they were dumped by Nike, when they were said, listen, you can go out and you can start with new manufacturers, a lot of those players switched into the M1 and the M2 driver. Most noticeably, McIlroy, one of the best drivers of the golf ball in the game, and Tiger Woods on his return. Now, the beauty of this for TaylorMade is they say, you know, some high sources in TaylorMade say they have absolutely 100% not paid McIlroy and Tiger to have those clubs in their bag. So for them, that is the best advertisement ever. Now for TaylorMade, obviously this was fantastic, although the timing was slightly odd in respects that yes, they were using the M1, the M2, which was fantastic, but then pretty much a few weeks later, obviously the announcement was made about the new M1 and the new M2. So if every player switches into those new clubs, awesome, they've got nothing to worry about. But if a lot of players decide to stay with the old product, then they may have more of an issue. It was also a good year for TaylorMade in respects that their big cavity iron, the M2, actually had the most market share according to TaylorMade. That's what we were told when we were over in Miami, which is surprising. I didn't like the M2. I thought it was bulky. I didn't like the feel of it. However, what it did was it went a long way and it went nice and high. And this doubles back onto a trend which was really occurring this year, but was also stretching back over a number of years. Now, over the last few years, like I said, this has been a trend. Iron lofts have been getting lower and lower and lower. But what made this year really stand out is that manufacturers basically made their cavity back irons into pretty much little hybrids. So they pushed the weight lower and further back. They really used loads of perimeter weighting. So although the loft was very low, the ball launched really high. That combination of low loft, high launch sent the ball a long way. And this was all about manufacturers trying to find a way to sell more clubs, to basically say, hey, listen, we've just brought out a new iron that goes longer than ever before, it flies nice and high, you need to try out this product. Obviously, they're going to hit a little bit of a barrier. If they start bringing out irons where the 4 irons are about 15 degrees of loft, people are going to be struggling to gap their bags accordingly. So we will see how that trend continues. One of the big other stories from this year was PXG really starting to get quite frisky, throwing a lot of money about, charging premium prices for their product. And they made quite an impression. They've snapped up a number of high-profile players and they have a lot of people talking about their clubs. It's going to be interesting to see how PXG go moving into next year, because at the moment, what I've heard from people who sell the clubs is that the prices are actually going to be going up next year. Now, they're already at the top end of the market, and if they go up any more, I don't know how many people are going to be able to justify to themselves buying that club. But it will certainly make a fascinating case study. One of the big things to look out for moving into next year is the battle of the balls, because there is absolutely no doubt that a lot of companies are really going to go after Titleist. The Pro V1 as the premium ball has been out there, has been the leader for a number of years, and it makes Acushnet, Titleist parents company, a hell of a lot of money. But what a lot of the other manufacturers are saying now is that they're producing products which are equal to the Pro V1. And they're really going after them. Companies like TaylorMade, like Callaway, like Shrixon, like Bridgestone, and even wholesalers like Costco are bringing out balls which they say can compete at the top end of this premium ball market whilst being sold to the consumer for less money. And this is going to be one of the major battlegrounds of 2017, because club head technology itself, although it is moving on incrementally, there's not these massive jumps, and the actual margins that the companies can get within the hardware market, it's very heavily weighted towards balls. You know, if Titleist were just selling their clubs and not their balls, they will nowhere be near as profitable as they are now. And other companies are cottoning on to this, even Mizuno. You know, a renowned iron maker, a renowned club maker, considered by many to be the best irons in the game, they're trying to push their balls even harder than ever. They're trying to capture the public's imagination with their golf balls. And if one of them succeeds, if one of them manages to topple Titleist off their throne, which I don't know if it's possible, then they're going to reap massive benefits. But please comment below. What do you think about this year? What do you think about these big stories? And what do you think about the ball market going into next year? Have you tried any of the new products? Are you going to stick with the Pro V1? I've got to be honest, I have tried the new Pro V1 and it is a great ball. I'd more than happily use that next year. So it's going to be, interesting. And for someone who likes to talk about this stuff and who likes to talk to other people about this stuff, it keeps it interesting for me. Now, one of the big talking points and the public mood, which I think peaked at the latter end of this year, but I think will continue to grow moving into 2017, is the customer annoyance of how many golf clubs are being brought out. Now, the reason that this is such a problem is that we've already seen massive problems within the golf retail industry. If you're thinking about Dick's Sporting Goods, if you're thinking about Golfsmith over in the UK, and you're looking at some of the current deals which are out there in retail across Europe and the UK at this moment in time, there's a real problem brewing. There's so many clubs being brought out, and there's a lot of people really starting to say, I am not willing to pay another £300 for a driver which is very similar to something I bought just a few months ago. And this was so evident. I mean, it was so evident when I was over in Miami, when I was testing out the new M1 and the new M2 from TaylorMade. I have rarely imagined a club launch really bringing out so much anger in people, which is confusing when you bear in mind this, that the M1 and the M2, which were brought out in 2016, were fantastic drivers. I mean, the M2 that I was using last year, that was the best driver I've ever had. Absolutely, hands down, no doubt about it. So you would think that a newer, updated version of those clubs would make people happy, but it didn't. It made people furious, and there is an obvious reason why. If you keep bringing out products and you keep presenting them to the public as the next best thing, eventually they're going to turn around and say, you know what? I can't see the benefits in switching from what I am currently using. There will always be, and there always has been, a number of core golfers who try and buy their way to a better game. Occasionally this can work, but the majority need to improve their overall technique if they want to improve their golf. And when certain companies, TaylorMade certainly used to be like this, but Callaway is probably the main culprit from this year, continue to bring out driver after driver after driver, and bear in mind this is just drivers, we're not talking about irons or fairway woods or anything else, continue to bring out those big statement clubs and say that they're fantastic, people are going to really think, well, why is it so much better than something which I bought only a few months ago? Because remember, golf club manufacturers, with the driver, I'm using the driver as an example, but you can talk about this with lots of other clubs as well, they're pushing up against the legal limits. You know, there's a lot of people saying right now that they can't push that technology any further. In my opinion, that's not true. Because whenever you see technologies reach a certain point, someone will always find a way to give it an extra shove. But in my opinion, if manufacturers just said, listen, 2017, we're going to limit ourselves to a certain number of releases. One type of driver, one type of fairway wood, one type of iron, although the irons may be slightly different. You could have a different blade, a cavity back, a muscle back, whichever way you want to look at it. I think that they would actually win back a lot of trust. And trust is such an important thing within the golf industry because so many people get turned off companies so quickly. And like I said, that is something which became very evident with the new TM launch. As always, please comment below because that's what this is all about. And this is what I really love about this channel. I've mentioned it before, but the interaction that you guys give on these subjects is amazing. It really helps me keep a finger on the pulse of what is happening out there. Right guys, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Follow me on my other social media links, which are all in the description below. And I will see you next year.